Today we're going to review one of my favorite features in Photoshop, which is the Camera Raw menu. There are two places that you can find the Camera Raw menu, which is Bridge and Photoshop. The difference between RAW and other file formats like a JPEG essentially has to do with how the picture is initially taken. In a RAW picture, nothing is automatically changed in the taking or processing of the picture to the memory card, which is what this design is showing you here. Whereas in the bottom here, you can see that going from RAW to JPEG, which is how many people sometimes choose to shoot, it will automatically change things like white balance, color space, and its compression to be a smaller size. There are many different types of RAW formats and file formats for images, and knowing all of them may get a little overwhelming. However, most of us are not taking our photographs with a DSLR or some other camera that has JPEG and RAW compression file types. And since some of us are not using DSLRs, but we're using our cell phones, we might feel like we are not able to reach some of the amazing editing abilities that we are able to find with the Camera Raw menu. The Camera Raw menu allows you to take pictures from this to this. A number of features that the Raw menu is able to enhance, from basic edits, which includes contrast, blacks and whites, and standard color correction. It's always great to look in detail if you're interested in sharpening your pictures a little bit, or taking out some noise reduction, which can be really helpful for low light with cameras, cell phone cameras, excuse me. You can, of course, mess with the colors in the picture. Perhaps you want your greens and your yellows to be a little bit warmer. Maybe you want your blues to be more saturated. I don't know. So you can also mess with the luminance, hue, and saturation of your colors. They have really nice ability to fix distortion from camera lens warp, as well as vignetting, which happens pretty naturally in the corners of images. The sensor is more sensitive in the very center than it is in the corners. So generally speaking, you may get this vignetting in the corners where the center is lit and the outsides are dark. So you can use this vignette setting to modify that. So I want to use this menu, however, not with a RAW photograph. I want to apply this to something that's not even a JPEG, a heic file. An heic file, of course, is the file format for images taken with an iPhone. So as should be of habit by now, I'll start by making a duplicate layer, or my layer for my background. The hotkeys for that, of course, is Command-J. And I am going to convert this layer into a smart object, and I'm doing that by right-clicking or Control-click and selecting make into smart object. Now if I do any editing with filters on this image, I can go back and change it, and I'll show you what I mean. We're going to go into the filters drop down menu from the top, and you'll see here one of the options is Camera Raw filter. And you'll see that we have all the same selections here for editing our picture, as you saw earlier with the Camera Raw image I showed. So these red spots here are showing me what's considered out of gamut or overexposed in this case, which I would want to remove. So I can play with this. Maybe I want to get a little more contrast in here. I'll bring down the highlights, try to get some color, get some good blacks, make sure I have a pure white. Maybe I can bring down my exposure just a touch. And I can start messing with this image. Dehazing is really nice for hazy images. If you're shooting in water, or you can see how it's getting clearer up here where there's haze in the background. And of course, texture and clarity. We reviewed our detail drop down, which I'll also pull up a little bit. I don't want it to look too, crunchy, over sharpened, but I'll sharpen it a touch. I can go into my color mixer here and start finagling colors a little bit more. maybe I want to push my greens just a little bit more to the warm side. I can bring my saturation up of that yellow. Maybe I really want to try to get a little more color in the sky. We'll try to get some more out of that. I think my greens can be a little less. Cool. We also mess with optics, which has to do with that lens distortion. So I'm going to do this to when it makes sense to me that the distortion is pretty much gone. That looks pretty good. And of course, vignetting, I'll touch up a little bit myself as well. I'm going to go back into my exposure and just bring it down a touch. Really go for some drama. And these are some of the basic options in our menu here. They also have a couple other really cool features where you can edit your pictures in the Camera Raw menu without having to do all of the steps in Photoshop. Another is the heal feature, which is very similar to spot healing in Photoshop fully. So maybe, for example, I want to get rid of this. I can select here. It'll show me what it's sampling from, and maybe I'll want to move it a little bit in order to make that sampling make sense. It also has the ability to do masking, where you are able to apply changes to certain parts of your image and not apply it to all of them, similar to if you were going to be masking an adjustment layer in your Photoshop layers. So Photoshop has a lot of great abilities to find the subject. In this case, there isn't one. And the sky, we can see if it finds the sky here. It did an okay job where I could try to bring that down a little bit or get some color in it. What other masks did it have? Of course, a brush mask, which is what you're used to doing, which is when you can add it yourself by brushing, right? I'll push OK because I'm good with this for now. And I do have to transform my picture in order to make it fill up those edges, of course. So we'll transform. While I transform a smart object, it does take away the edits on it, and then it will apply them when the transformation's done. I want to make it a little bigger. Command T or edit transform, make it a little touch bigger. And now my cell phone image went from that to this, which can be really dramatic and wonderful. And that is a really quality image to add to a publication or something that maybe is going along with an article or something like that. And since we made this into a smart filter, rather than just directly applying this filter to a layer, I can simply go back in here and double click on Camera Raw, and I can open up to all of the changes I made before and perhaps make some more modifications, you know, as I'm finding what I like more with my image. And because of that, now nothing is ever directly applied to my picture. I can always turn it off and turn it back on again. I can mask it out if I needed to. And of course, I have my original picture in the back there. You can also open in Camera Raw directly from Bridge. I really love Bridge as a organization system. You can rate your files simply by rating them down here by dragging or command and a number from 1 to 5. 1, right, 3, command 5. And it's a really nice way to cull down your images. For example, my ratings here, I'm only looking at my 5 stars, which can be a really nice way of looking at my favorite pictures from a shoot and just working with those instead of, you know, losing my way through something that maybe I wouldn't have rated at all. You can open in Camera Raw through Bridge by right-clicking or command-click and select Open in Camera Raw. And again, you'll find yourself at the same raw menu that we were just using before, again, with a cell phone photograph I just took. So I can mess with this to start, you know, finagling with this. Cool. What else would I want to look at? We'll do detail, and I'll sharpen this a tad. I'm not going to sharpen it too much because I'm going to want to mask out the mulch, I think, and make that less sharp. So I'm going to probably do that with masking later. We can do our color mixer, which would be fine. All right, let's see here. We have optics here, and I'll try to get rid of that mild amount of vignetting and stretching I have here because I'm close to it. Great, and let's go into my spot healing, and I'm going to get rid of this boy here, I think. And I'll try to find maybe a different corner to use. Cool. And maybe this one as well. And I'm just going to move this around until I find an edge that makes sense to me. I'm going to make it a little smaller. You can do that simply by toggling on this slider here or by using right and left bracket, very similar to how we use in Photoshop. That'll work. And then of course our masking here. Let's see what it selects as the subject. Oh, I detected this guy, my mistake. Let's do subject. Works for me. So I'm going to turn off the overlay here, and I'm going to finagle with these parts here that it suggested as the subject, just to make it pop a little more and really stand out. Really give it some texture and sharpness. That's great. And then I'm going to do another one where I'm going to just brush it in myself. And I'll start with that. So I'm going to just start dragging my cursor around to where I'll want to make a mask here. Of course, you can erase from your mask by switching your brush to eraser, and you can fix any edges if you feel like you've surpassed too many boundaries. All right, and now I can use this. Let me turn off my overlay here. You know, maybe I want to bring it down a touch. I'll make it a little warmer. You know, bring down those highlights a little bit. Take away some of those really textured edges. Bring down its sharpness a touch too. Cool. I'm good with that, so I'll push done. And you can see here it has automatically made that change into my file. And I can now open this in Photoshop. And we have our file. You can get so many awesome features out of even your cell phone pictures just by using the Camera Raw menu. So with that, you should be able to complete your assignment pretty easily for this week. Make sure to check it out, or you will be applying the Camera Raw menu to cell phone photographs that you are taking. Reach out if you have any questions.